Today on Rambling About Cars, we got a whole lot of Jeeps. A lot of Jeeps. We've got a Mercedes with Formula One tech that you can buy, and we got something else, and I can't think of it. It seemed to me like it was important. It was something that we've got the Toyota GR Corolla. I love that thing. So without further ado, it's podcast time. I am Christopher Smith, and give it up across the way, Mr. Chris Bruce.
Hey, everybody. So, last week we promised you a guest this week. Unfortunately, that person was feeling a little under the weather, so we had to reschedule things. So, sorry.
We're waiting a little bit here.
Yeah. You just get Smith and I. Some of our episodes, we kind of have a real structure. Like last week, you had all the stories. This week, it's more like two guys standing around a garage, having some drinks and talking cars. So it's kind of going to be a real ramble this week, but those are fun.
Fortunately, there's been a lot going on here in the last week or so.
There has been
a little bit longer, week and a half, and in fact, some of the stuff is happening pretty much right now as this episode airs on Friday. It's so new that we're still in the process learning about it here a couple days prior.
Absolutely.
But before we jump into that, Bruce, where can people actually listen to this podcast? What are all the places that they can go?
You can find us everywhere. We love it when you look at us on YouTube. Our video edition, I wouldn't say it's the premiere version or the preferred version, but it's where we get a lot of our views these days. So certainly YouTube at Motor One Podcast is our channel, but also your Spotify's, your iTunes's. I only learned recently because I found it by accident. We are on Amazon Prime, or not Amazon Prime, Audible, which is owned by Amazon. So you can find us all over the web, and anywhere you find us, please like, subscribe, follow, whatever that thing is called on that service. Please do that. But yeah, without further ado, let's talk some Jeeps. Jeep has their annual Easter Safari coming up here. That's, they've been doing it for, it's got to be over a decade now.
It's decades plural. And full disclosure, I mean, I'm not a huge Jeep guy. I'm not a huge off-roader, but I mean, I do dig everything that's going on. And every year, Jeep, I won't say they pull out all the stops, but they really go all in for their Easter Jeep Safari. It's over at Moab, obviously, where it's just, the mecca for off-roaders. And you are listening to this today on Friday, April 8th. Technically, the material that we're looking at right now is still under embargo, so it's still kind of a secret for us, but we can talk about it right now.
Yep.
Today, Friday, April 8th, Jeep has announced all of the vehicles that they are going to take to the Easter Jeep Safari, and it's a lot. They have 10 vehicles all total that they're taking out this year. I don't know if that's the most they've ever had. If it's not the absolute most, it's right up there at the top because of the last few years, obviously. I mean, the last few years have been crazy in the auto.
Last 2 years, yeah. 2020, because I wrote a story on it. 2021 and 2020 were, I think, 6 to 7, but in 2019 they had close to 10 again. So we're kind of, for lack of a better word, this is a return to normal, I guess you could say, if you can call it, normal's a complicated word, but
it's complicated these days. But they've got 10 vehicles total. 7 of those are brand new. We should be clear there. 7 of those are new. 3 of them are former vehicles that you've seen before. They were at SEMA. We'll get to those towards the end. But 7 are brand new. 5 of those are concepts from Jeep. 2 of those are concepts from Jeep Performance Parts, basically showcasing all the stuff that you can buy to put on your Wrangler, your Gladiator, whatever Jeep you have. And then the other 3 are concepts. So we're kind of winging this one here, folks. I've got the press release pulled up in front of me. I've taken a look at it, and I know, Bruce, you've taken a look at it as well. But we're just going to kind of run down this press release. And if you want to follow us over on YouTube, if you're not there, we're going to have pictures popping up showing these concepts. We only have a couple pictures of each concept, but it gives
generally
you an idea.
2 to a concept.
Yeah.
So just
it gives you an idea of what's going on there. So let's run through the 5 Jeep proper concepts first. And I'm just going to run down the names. Bruce, don't worry about jumping over to photos. I'll just run through the names here really quick, and then we'll take a little bit deeper dive. There's the Wrangler Magneto 2.0, which is the second version of Jeep's all-electric Wrangler that's got more power and just more punch all around. There's the Grand Cherokee Trailhawk plug-in hybrid. It's basically the Grand Cherokee 4xe that's tweaked up here a little bit. We've got the Jeep 41 concept, which is a really cool retro take on an old Willys Jeep, based
Willis.
on Willis. Sorry, Bruce. It wouldn't
What
be
you talking about, Willis?
It wouldn't be rambling about cars if I didn't mispronounce something. That won't be the last thing I mispronounce today, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, obviously based on a modern Jeep with retro cues. You've got the Wrangler Rubicon 20th anniversary concept, honoring obviously the 20th anniversary of the Rubicon. That's happening. And we have the Jeep Bob concept. It's a curious name. Hey, Bob. How you doing, Bob? It's a Jeep Gladiator.
Let's start by explaining the Bob, because it's a good place to start.
Okay. We'll start by explaining the Bob. So, like I said, you've got the picture pulled up there. Yeah, you've got the picture pulled up. At first glance, you think, oh, that's a Wrangler. No, that's actually a Gladiator. It's called Bob because it takes after the concept. And this is kind of news to me, to be honest, of, I guess, bobbing the bed of the pickup truck to make it shorter. This is about a foot shorter than a regular Gladiator. Obviously, they also yank off the doors. It's got a 3-inch lift on it. Custom off-road suspension components, Dynatrac Pro Rock 60 axles, 40-inch tires mounted on 20-inch beadlock wheels. The multi-finished exterior paint mixes gloss and matte finishes for added flair and texture. If you can't tell, I'm reading the press release right now.
Well, let's not just read the press release. Let's talk about it a second, because you can see it here. It's interesting because they took a Gladiator, they cut off the bed, but then when you look at it, they also cut some out of the body, because there's no way you could do a 4-door with this. Especially the image we're looking at here. You can see where that B pillar is, and that door is so tiny. It's essentially it's like a 1.5 door if you could ever mount a door to it.
Right.
It's a neat looking rig. Like, it's not something you're ever actually going to be able to buy or that they're ever going to build, but it's a neat idea.
I mean, I kind of like it. I mean, it's almost a take on like a Wrangler pickup truck. If you would say Jeep made, say, an extended cab 2-door Wrangler pickup truck, I feel like that could be it. They obviously, the doors are gone. They also cut out the B pillar, so there's actually no B pillar in there. And
there's just kind of an upright type, barely a support. It's not really a B pillar, but there's something there, I guess. And
something weird that you can't see in the photos. The roof is still on there, but there are holes in the roof. And then they put that canvas roof over top. It sort of looks like a bikini top. They put that over the top. The idea is, okay, with the holes in the roof and then that fabric over top, you get more ambient light inside, in case removing the doors and the B pillar isn't enough for you, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, they give it a lift. I would say of all of these, this one is the most interesting, both visually and just aesthetically to me, as far as the stance. It certainly has a bright interior. I don't know, that might get to me after a little bit, on the trails, but yeah, of all of the ones that we have here today, I think this one is most interesting to me.
Yeah, they've definitely gone the furthest with this one of the whole group. Some of them, especially like the Cherokee we were talking about, it's almost just like a color package. There's not much to it. But this thing, they actually did some stuff. Like you said, they cut off the pickup bed. But then when you look at the front, there's like zero overhang. There's the front bumper is like vestigial at best. It's kind of just this little thing that's there. Like, it's really made to go off-road. They cut the area out of the body. It's a cool looking rig. It's not something you're ever going to be able to buy because there are just so many compromises here, but it's interesting. And I'm sure a lot of these parts are going to be available because it's, Jeep performance parts. I bet like the bikini top or the wheels, or especially like if you look at the front, those LED lights at the front, stuff like that. But it's a neat idea.
No, I dig it. Do you want to jump over to the Jeep 41 concept, the Willis?
Sure can.
Because of all the ones here, this is also interesting to me just because it has a very cool retro vibe to it. And it's also based on the 4xe. So it's hybrid. It's got some electrification going on here.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do with the 41 concept here? I mean, the powertrain is untouched. Of course, it's the 2-liter turbocharged engine, 8-speed automatic transmission. It's got the drab green exterior.
Yep. Olive
Colorfully
drab.
decorated in an olive drab 41 matte green finish with black powder coated steel bumpers, worn winch, Jeep Performance Parts bumper hoop, retro trim cap accentuates a tan soft top, while Jeep Performance Parts half doors offer an enhanced open air experience, blah, 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 blah. Inside the 41 concept is a retro shifter, and I wish they had sent us photos.
Yeah, they didn't give us pictures of that. We
don't
only
have
have
photos of any of the interior on these. Hopefully, come Friday, as you're listening to this,
yeah,
sometimes they'll drop some updated photos after embargoes lift. I would love to get a really good look at the interior on this. It's got canvas covered seats, feature digital camo inserts, rhino lined heavy texture floor. Concept instrument panel inserts are also painted drab green. Features a custom Willis retro graphic. It sits on a 2-inch lift. It's got 35-inch tires, 17-inch wheels. Obviously, the wheels have just a nice classic kind of steel look, although they're 17 inches. They're a little bit bigger than you got back in the day. I think it's a cool retro take with a modern Rubicon, with a modern Wrangler.
And like I was saying before, like some of these are very much things that could actually happen, and this is very much like Jeep has made Willis edition Wranglers before. That's not new. But essentially, you are getting that here. You're getting olive drab paint. There's nothing about those wheels that someone couldn't make. It's a tan interior. I you look at it, that's just essentially fabric. Like this is a special edition Jeep that could happen down the line, or that just someone could build. Like if they like these things, that you could get, pick a Jeep in this color and then go through the Jeep Performance products catalog and grab these items. There's nothing here that's especially new, but they're combined in a way that looks cool, has a very kind of classic military look. And yeah,
I'm digging it. Do you want to talk about probably the one that maybe, I don't know if people are super interested in this. It's going to be the most powerful one here, and I'm talking about the Magneto 2.0.
Sure thing.
That is basically a 2-door electrified Wrangler. If you remember Magneto from, was it last year they had the Magneto concept? The fully electrified.
Time has no meaning. For some reason, if you asked me, I would have said it's 2 years ago, but time at this point is weird. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Well, this is Magneto 2.0. It's got a custom built axial flux electric motor, 6-speed manual transmission. Which is pretty rare to find paired with an electric.
Well, let's be honest. This is not ever meant to actually drive. So you could put in 100-speed manual transmission, and
but correct me if I'm wrong. But I think at Moab, these vehicles do get driven. They do show them off.
They do. But what I mean is, this is not something that we're ever going to see in production. And so,
and I'm not sure. And I'm not sure even a 6-speed manual with an electric motor like this, I mean, would be practical. It sounds neat.
Right.
You're gonna get so much down low torque. You don't necessarily need that super duper, range of ratios to get you down the trail.
Exactly.
4 lithium-ion battery packs. For evenly distributed weight, it's got the power at 70 kilowatt hours, running an 800-volt system, blah, 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 blah. What does that mean performance-wise? It enables the Magneto 2.0 to instantly deliver up to 850 pound-feet of torque to the wheels. That's pretty good.
That's a lot of torque.
Good. I can't imagine.
Especially in a Wrangler, especially in a vehicle with a wheelbase this short.
Yeah, well, they did. It should be mentioned. They did stretch it just a little bit, and it's probably for the best when you start talking about 850 pound-feet of torque. With that torque, though, is also 625 horsepower for serious rock climbing challenges. I don't think there's anybody out there that's like, I need 625 horsepower to go rock climbing. It's not about speed. It's about torque. It's about balance. It's about crawling. But hey, I see what they're going for here. Curiously, let me just get this in really quick, Bruce, because that segue talking about the power and going slow. Jeep says this will do 0 to 60 in 2 seconds.
Okay.
Because when I'm rock crawling, that's exactly what I need. 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. But I mean, it's a concept. It's
Sure.
all about fun, obviously.
Well, it's all about fun, and it's also
fast. There's no disputing that.
But what they're doing here is they're trying to show what the future is. Like, there is no doubt that electrification is basically the future of the industry, but also the future of Jeep. We've already seen their 4xe vehicles, and we're going to see one here in a second. But also a fully electric Wrangler, I believe they've said, is going to happen. It's years down the line, but it's going to happen eventually. And what they're priming the pump here, to mix metaphors, that, you know, they want to show people that theoretically an electric Wrangler can be just as fun as a gas powered Wrangler. And there's no reason it shouldn't be, as long as, you know, like you said, torque is the thing that you want when you're off-roading, and an electric motor has tons of torque and has it immediately, and it's exactly what you want. Yeah. But, you know, you have to convince people of that, and it's slow going, and this is a step towards doing that.
And something that goes 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, even in the off-road community, that grabs attention.
Of course, definitely.
If not remotely practical at all for this application, it certainly grabs attention. It's also worth pointing out, this has a 3-inch lift. It rides on 40-inch off-road tires, mounted on 20-inch wheels. 0 to 60 in 2 seconds on 40s with a 3-inch lift in a 2-door Wrangler, even if it is
with it is not a 2-door Wrangler. It's a no-door Wrangler.
Well, but if there were doors on it, there would be only 2. The point being,
sure, yes.
I mean, I've been in small 2-door Wranglers. They're a handful. They can be a handful with a little bit of power. This has a lot of power. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yep. What else do we want to see here for the main concepts? What do we got left?
Do Rubicon 20th anniversary next.
Rubicon 20th anniversary. There's no mention. I want to be clear on this. There's no mention that this concept will go into production. But honestly, I don't see any reason why it couldn't. 2003, the 2023 model year then will be the 20th anniversary from when the Rubicon first came out in 2003. This particular one is based on the Rubicon 392, so it's got the 6.4 Hemi in there. There's no modifications to the powertrain at all. This does get a dual mode performance exhaust that switches, and this is Jeep's phrasing, not me, that switches between wild and outrageous, so it can be loud or it can be louder, right? It's got a 2-inch lift on it. It's got 17-inch custom wheels, 37-inch mud terrain tires, steel bumpers and hoop with worn winch, steel belly pan added to help navigate treacherous terrain and challenging off-road conditions. Just a few mechanical upgrades, and then they put, you know, some splashy graphics on it. There's no reason in my mind that couldn't go into production if they wanted to do something special for the 20th anniversary. And I suspect we'll see some sort of 20th anniversary model in showrooms. It may not have a 2-inch lift, but I'm sure we'll see something here.
I think it'll have the 2-inch lift. I don't think you'll be able to get it with the 392.
Based on the 392, the Rubicon 392.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get it with that, because as far as I understand, supplies on that are really thin right now. But I bet you'll be able to get a Rubicon lifted 20th anniversary edition. I wouldn't be shocked by that at all.
Well, supplies are limited on everything right now.
Yeah. Supplies are especially limited, put it that way.
I mean, I would think they would sell more if it wasn't tied to the 392. The Rubicon 392 is an expensive Jeep already.
Yeah.
And I imagine there'd be a lot of people that would want to get in on the 20th anniversary Rubicon edition.
And our coworker Brandon Turkis, he had a 392. Did he end up getting like 12 or 14 miles to the gallon during his like entire time driving it? It was something like that.
I mean, it wasn't good, but I mean, are you expecting it to be good? You're not paying that kind of money to get good fuel economy. So
no, you're not.
Rubicon 392. That for the official Jeep concepts now, that leaves us with the Grand Cherokee Trail, like basically the Grand Cherokee 4xe.
Like, this is just a color package and some wheels, right?
Yeah, I mean that's really all it is. I'm scrolling to it right now just to make sure I've got all my ducks in a row. But yeah, I mean it's just the stock powertrain.
It looks like it has a little bit of a lift kit. It's got some wheels and tires, and it's got a special color, and that's
Yeah,
the list.
it's got custom 20-inch painted neutral gray metallic wheels, 33-inch tires. Doesn't even talk about a lift, so it's just sitting up a little bit higher. It's just sitting
looks like
up a
it
little
has
bit.
a lift.
It's just sitting up a little bit higher because of the tires. Trimmed wheel wells with custom widened flares are the perfect complement to the Meteor wheel and tire combo.
So it's even less than what I thought it was.
and some graphics, and yeah, that's about it. Of course, I mean the plug-in hybrid it's the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with electric power. Yeah. But yeah, I mean it's probably the weakest here. But I mean this is also a brand new vehicle for Jeep, the Cherokee, the Grand Cherokee 4xe. So this isn't necessarily about showing people what you can do with the Grand Cherokee 4xe. It's more about showing we have one now.
And real quick, let's hit. So I forgot about this from SEMA. Maybe we discussed it. I don't think we did. Remind me what the name of this is, but this is a Wrangler. It essentially has 3 rows of seats, and it's got this really cool kind of roof on it.
That is the Jeep Wrangler Outlook, or sorry, that is the Wrangler Overlook concept. And yeah,
I like this thing.
This is an older vehicle. It was at SEMA this year, so I mean it's not new for each Jeep Safari. But I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's a 3-row Wrangler. And I know I'm a fan of the Wrangler, but I'm not even a big fan of the unlimited 4 doors because that defeats the whole concept that the Wrangler originally was, being a small, nimble off-roader that's easy to maneuver, that has great approach and departure angles, that you can snake through trees. So the whole idea of an even bigger 3-row Wrangler it's just kind of annoying to me. I don't have full information on this. The Wrangler Overlook concept stretches a 4-door Wrangler Sahara into a 3-row off-roader loaded with luxury touches. So they do kind of bill it as a little bit snazzier.
Maybe I just like the roof. I just for some reason I like those extra windows in the roof.
I mean, I guess I'll say this. I like it. I think it looks cool. It's just it goes against what a Wrangler should be, in my opinion.
I agree with that. You're not wrong. I am talking purely aesthetically. There's something about that vehicle that does it for me. I wouldn't buy one. But I agree with you. The 2-door is where it's at. But
I mean, I sort of get like maybe an older Range Rover. I can't talk, and I'm gonna have another drink, Bruce, while you figure this out. It's got an older Range Rover vibe to it. I think maybe
I see more like Defender. Like, if there had been an old school 3-row Defender, which I guess there was, they had the military versions, the troop transports. It's kind of something like that. It's not a real vehicle. We're BSing here. I like it. Yeah. And then the other one this was also from SEMA last year, from 2021. This is the Kaiser Jeep. Was it
Kaiser M725?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that before. It's nice to see with the range of brand new vehicles. It's nice to see, attention paid to something old as well. And I think that's pretty cool. And then the other previous concept that we've seen before is the original Wrangler 4xe concept. No big shock there. It's just displaying the first hybrid Wrangler that you can get. Now Jeep Performance Parts also has 2 vehicles, and these are brand new. And I'm scrolling to those right now. There is the first one, Bruce, if you could bring it up, the Jeep Decoder Concept Gladiator.
We started with that. Isn't that this guy?
No, yeah, that's it. But we didn't start talking about it.
You're right. We started with the first image I had up. You're right. I'm sorry.
We started with Bob.
Yep, we did start with Bob.
Hey, Bob. So if that was Bob, then this is. I mean, what is this? Is this a?
This is a Gladiator with some gloss black paint with a whole lot of red accents.
This would be Chuck, maybe Maybe we have Bob. I feel like this is a Chuck, and yeah, it's a Jeep Gladiator, or no, I'm sorry.
No, it's a Gladiator. You're right.
Yeah, that's right. See, this is what happens, folks, when an automaker drops 10 vehicles on you, and you have like 2 hours to try to learn.
Also,
them all.
you've had a long day, to be fair. Like, yeah, I know you've had a long day. It's been busy. We were expecting some Honda news that never kind of happened. So, full disclosure, Smith he is coming to this right after he's done with work, whereas I have gotten to have dinner and play with the dog and stuff like that. So, don't blame it on Smith.
Don't make excuses. Actually, you can go ahead and make excuses. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll just take another drink of my completely normal beverage here that I have in my hand.
But anyway, so this is the decoder. As you can see, it is a Gladiator with a ton of performance parts put on it.
35.
They're all in red. You can kind of see the parts that are added because they're bright red. Snorkel, front bumper, lights, tubular doors, a rack in the back, just every kind of thing.
It is basically a rolling marketplace for Jeep performance parts. They have more than 35 parts on there. It's got a 2-inch lift with Fox shocks. It's got 17-inch 5-spoke wheels on 37-inch tires. You already talked about the snorkel, the rack. The powertrain is still the same. In this case, it's the 3.6 liter engine. It's got a Jeep Performance Parts Gorilla Glass windshield. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh, yeah, I've written about that twice now.
Offers up to 3 times the strength of a standard windshield. What are you doing, folks, when you're out? I mean, do you need a windshield that's 3 times as strong? I guess if you're crawling and you're really getting into some articulation and stressing the body a little bit, I guess you could get a little bit of flex going on.
Well, not only that, but the argument that, so like I said, I wrote about this when it was a rumor and then when it was confirmed. So I guess I am the expert on the Gorilla Glass windshield, but they were also saying because if you ever look at a Gladiator or a Wrangler, because of how upright that windshield is, they're really susceptible to rock cracks. Like if, you're following a guy on a trail or just on the highway and they kick up a rock and it hits the windshield, because it's so vertical, it doesn't like ping off like a normal car, and rock cracks happen. And the Gorilla Glass windshield, it solves that because, like you said, it's 3 times stronger and it's not that much money. It's like I'm surprised that it's not a very, very common option. I can't remember. I think it was like $800, something like that, which when you think about, you're never, it's going to be so much stronger. You're not going to have to replace it. And you can get it straight from the factory. It's not just a Jeep Performance Products item. You can just like have it put on from the factory. It's a neat thing.
Well, I will say, I mean, this Gladiator decoder build, I don't know that I like it better than Bob. Bob just has a novelty to it.
Bob does have a novelty, yes.
But I mean, black and red, it can either go like really, really gaudy or really, really cool.
See, to me, this is really gaudy, but I understand what they're doing. They're trying to show off all the parts that they offer, and they're doing it in red. And they're like, "Hey, you want one of these?
Like a contrast.
Pick the red part." And
pick the red part. It falls somewhere between gaudy and cool to me, I guess.
Okay, fair.
But there's one more here that we'll talk about before
I love this color.
Things. This is the Jeep Birdcage concept. It's based on a Rubicon 4xe. It's a showcase for Jeep performance parts. So it's going to have quite a bit added to it. It's got the rack on there. This one actually doesn't even have a windshield. After all the talk we had before, this one doesn't even have a windshield.
Who needs them?
Yeah, it's a Jeep. It's it's got special doors on it. Let me kind of.
Well, it's also got that really complicated rack. If you're watching, if you're looking on YouTube, so it's got kind of the regular Jeep roof, but then it's got this rack that attaches onto it, and it has just several attachment points. 1, 2, looks like 5 or 6 attachment points, and then they also add a bunch of light bars, 3 light bars on the top of it. So it's definitely pure off-roader. You also get a gas can on the side of it that has like a fastener on it, Warn winch at the front.
Yep.
So, all sorts of parts. This is obviously a pure off-roader. Like Smith said, there is no windshield on there at all.
No windshield. They removed the windshield wipers. It says here the team tastefully closed off the instrument panel and created a custom cowl and windshield wiper filler panel covers, creating a smooth factory appearance.
Sadly, we cannot see the interior of any of these. So
yeah,
this image, it looks like there's still a little bit of instrument there, but hard to say.
Yep. Front seat occupants will find custom Jeep performance parts, instrument panel accessory rail that holds various mobile devices securely in place, stainless steel pedal covers. Outside, we've got 37-inch tires. This also has 17-inch wheels. I believe that's also a 2-inch lift on there. Yep. It's got the 2-inch lift. It's got rock rail bars underneath. It's decked out, and it's also based off the 4xe. So clearly, Jeep they're doing their best to try to showcase electrification. And you know what? Hey, if you're a regular listener to Rambling About Cars, we don't mind electricity in our vehicles.
Not a bit. And I love this color. So they, like all of the rest of them, they supplied 2 photos. And so if you're watching on YouTube, we're looking at the back angle right now, and it's kind of a chocolatey brown. But then in the other image they supplied from the front, it's got a little bit of red to it. It's almost like I don't know. There's a little bit of like burgundy Merlot in there.
It just looks brown to me, man.
Okay, well, maybe it's my monitor. Maybe it's my laptop screen, but
Jeep calls it Eagle Brown.
Okay.
For whatever that's worth. It's not a bad color, but I'm not a huge fan.
I like it. Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of brown. But hey, that's why that's how the world turns.
Yep. And those are all of the Jeep Easter Safari vehicles for this year. All their concepts, they're always fun. I would definitely say winner this year is Bob. Bob wins.
I dig Bob just for. It's not even really that outrageous. It's just it catches your eye. There's a lot of work going on here.
There is. There's a lot of work
that you wouldn't realize just by looking at it. Maybe that's why I like it as well. But the orange accents on there, I don't know. It kind of does it for me. And,
I think it's that the longer you look at it, the more you realize how much work they've done. When you look at the front, you realize, they've shortened up the front overhang. At the back, obviously, they shortened up that overhang. In the middle, they've taken out this length so that it's no longer it could no longer be a 4-door. It's got this different look. Like, they've done a lot of work there, and you kind of have to applaud that in a certain way. That it's the vehicle this year they've done the most to, and from that, I kind of have to give it the most respect.
Yep. And if you happen to be in Utah or heading to that area, the safari runs April 9th through April 17th, which starts this weekend as you're listening to the podcast.
Well, from a vehicles, I should say, that are meant for going off-road to one that you should never take off-road unless something horribly bad happens.
Unless you miss an apex, right?
Yeah. Why don't we talk about the Mercedes-AMG SL43, which, as of this recording, just debuted yesterday evening. And Smith, you wrote this up, and it's kind of it's the new version of the SL. We've obviously seen the other variants, but this one is special because it has a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. But why don't you tell people why that turbocharger is so special?
Well, you're thinking, okay, well, Mercedes put their Turbo 4 into another car. Well, yes and no, because this is the M139, the 2-liter turbocharged engine, but it's using an electric exhaust gas turbocharger. It's part electric, part normal. It's Formula One technology taken from Mercedes F1 team. Mercedes says it's the first production car to use something like this. Basically, it draws power from the car's 48-volt system. It's also a mild hybrid, so it has the start-stop technology on it. It draws power from that system. There's a little electric motor right on the shaft of that turbo. I have no idea how long that will last, but it's designed to spin the turbo up. And then as revs go up, the exhaust gases take over, do their thing to spin the turbo. The idea is you get better throttle response. Mercedes says that it's it's better all across the range. For the driver behind the wheel, you probably want to know, okay, it sounds neat. What does it have for power? And it's 381 horsepower in this application, 354 pound-feet of torque. The torque comes on, I believe, right around 3,000 RPMs. Yep, 3,250 RPMs, and it holds steady to 5,000 revs. So, I mean, the turbo, it gives it a pretty broad torque curve. It should be a pretty good car, just at lower speeds, streetable speeds. And if you're thinking, well, gosh, why would I want a Mercedes SL with just 381 horsepower when you got the SL43? That's what is it? Is that 577, Bruce? I think.
I believe you're right.
I mean, this thing must be slow. Well, Mercedes still says it does 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. That's not slow. It's not SL63 performance, but that's still going to be plenty fast. It tops out over 170 miles an hour, which also fast. It still has the 9-speed transmission driving the rear wheels. Everything else is pretty much the same that you would find on the SL43, or I'm sorry, the SL63.
63.
It does have a different front and rear fascias. They're
slightly different. Like
they fall a little more in line with, I guess, what you would call standard Mercedes-Benz styling as opposed to the AMG styling. The front fascia isn't quite as aggressive. You don't have those scalloped vents on the rear fascia, and obviously you don't have the squared off exhaust tips. This is going to have oval exhaust tips on it. It's a very easy way to identify the car. The press photos that Mercedes sent over just have it in this gorgeous shade of blue. I love the blue.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about that in our chat today.
Yeah, I would have no problem at all driving this car. Of course, Mercedes also says, since you have a smaller engine up front, it changes the handling dynamics of this car significantly. They don't go into detail on that. They do say that some suspension components are changed since they don't have to be quite as beefy to handle the weight, which also just gives it a little bit more lightness to it. But yeah, SL43 inside, all the same tech is still there that you would be able to get on the 63. It still has the available rear steering if you want. It has all the drive modes. Just everything that you know and love, paired with a 4-cylinder engine for a little bit more efficiency, a little less performance. One thing we don't know is pricing and availability. We're fairly certain this will be available in the U.S. at some point, but that's all going to be announced at a later date.
So real quick, I think it's worth discussing that engine a little bit more because we've been hearing, or at least I have been writing about electric turbochargers for ages. It feels like I've been doing this job for 11 years. I bet for 5 or 6 years, I have been writing about electric turbochargers. And it's interesting that they're finally here because in theory, they should combine all of the advantages of a supercharger where you get boost immediately because it's driven off the crank. And so rather than driving it off the crank, you have an electric motor spinning the turbo, but then also have the advantages of a turbo where as you build revs and you're driving more gas through it, you are still getting that boost. And so they, at least on paper, they seem really, really good. And it's been a technology that we've been waiting for a while. And it's really cool that we're seeing it on this vehicle. And if you think about it from a volumetric efficiency standpoint, a 2-liter engine making 380 horsepower, that's it's not 200 horsepower per liter, but it's not that far from it. You are getting a ton of performance out of a very small engine. And neither one of us have driven this vehicle yet. We don't know. But if it turns out that there's zero turbo lag, which is what this system promises, and you have all this power, like it kind of ends up being the best of all possible worlds. Like, yeah, you don't get the sound of a V8, but 380 horsepower, that's more than what like an SL560 was making a couple decades ago. So,
I mean, everybody, right? Everybody has become a little jaded in the age of Hellcats with 700 horsepower, kind of, I won't say commonplace, but certainly not uncommon in the performance realm. I mean, supercars making 700-800 horsepower, hypercars going well over 1,000. So you think 381 horsepower, it's not a lot, but I mean, it still is. That's still 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. That's still enough to just roast the tires if you want. That's still more than enough to get into all kinds of trouble. It's more than enough to be a handful for somebody that doesn't really, how should I say, if you're not very comfortable with opposite lock, just leave all the assists turned on, right?
Well, the thing is that an SL is not supposed to be that. An SL is the grand tour. You're supposed to just like waft away with speed. It's not supposed to be a sports car, or at least in the modern. It's like an AMG GT. If you want to do that, that's what you go for.
But Bruce, lest we forget, this isn't a Mercedes-Benz SL. This is a Mercedes-AMG.
You're right.
It's kind of built in a little bit right from the get-go now.
Sure.
To have a little bit of wildness about it. But to talk more about that electric exhaust gas turbocharger, I want to emphasize to everybody listening, it still uses exhaust gases to spin up. It's still a traditional turbo.
Did I misunderstand? The electric motor spins it initially. It gets the first little bit going, and then the exhaust gas comes in and does it the rest of the way. Yes.
I just want to make sure everybody understands this isn't a purely electric turbo. This isn't one of those things that you've seen on eBay, for like the last 15 years. Oh,
no.
20 horsepower and increase your fuel efficiency by 50%. No. This isn't right. This is proven tech for Mercedes Formula One team. So yeah.
Right. And in theory, that should mean no turbo lag, because
in theory,
as soon as you press the throttle, whatever electronic system is there, the electric motor spins up the throttle to the correct amount, and then the exhaust gases take it from there and spin it up the rest of the way.
Right. Now, the one thing I'm unsure of that Mercedes didn't really go into detail in its press release is that motor constantly spinning it at a certain pace? Does it only spin up once it detects input from the throttle? It wasn't entirely clear, but with an electric motor,
that's the type of technical question you'd probably have to ask an engineer about rather than a press release. Yeah.
Even if it's not like pre-spun, so to speak, you're still going to get much quicker response from that electric motor as opposed to waiting for engine revs to build up so you get more exhaust gases flowing to spin the turbo faster, to get the revs up to get more exhaust gases flowing. That's the whole, for decades now, that's been the whole thing.
Forever. That's the issue.
You want a small turbo to spin it quicker, but a big turbo will make more power, but it spins slower. So you have something, ideally this is supposed to be the best of both worlds in a single compact unit. So
that was the theory behind. Real quick, that was the theory behind like bi-turbo units back in the day, where you would have one small turbo that would spin up quick, and then once there was enough boost, there would be a big turbo that would spin up and give you power. And theoretically, this solves that problem. Maybe, neither one of you have driven this car, so we don't know. But at least in theory, that's what happens.
It should go on sale later this year, but like I said, Mercedes, they didn't release information on pricing. The press release, I believe, came from Mercedes in Europe. So we don't know exactly yet if it's going to be available in the United States, but I honestly don't see why they wouldn't offer it here at some point. So I'll be interested to see how it works out on the street. I think it's a cool car. I'm a big fan of the new SL.
Agreed. And I love that color. It's like a baby blue almost. Like it's a retro color. Like you could imagine a car from the late 50s, early 60s in this color.
Yeah. I think it's an attractive car. I think that's a great color for this car. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Cool.
Even if I don't sound that way, I'm excited for it. Yeah.
Well, do we want to do comments to go from one thing you're not excited about to another, or
let's do some comments here, because last week's episode was a really good episode.
I agree.
We had just a hilarious time. If you haven't listened to it, I certainly advise you go back, give it a listen. It's just 6 people all total, swapping car stories, just sitting around having a good time. It's a completely new formula that we tried. We had some great returning guests, veterans that had been on the show before, and we did have some comments to our YouTube video Ted Adam Green, who I know has commented before, who the blank had me go after Alanis. That was quoting Motor One editor in chief Seth Mearsma, who I don't know if we saved the best for last. Seth had a really great story about jumping.
You did.
He had a really great story about driving Subarus at the Isle of Man. I don't think jumping them was supposed to be part of it, but that's sort of
what happened.
But before him, Alanis King was on, and she had I thought was a really good, interesting story about just an experience that she had, and that kind of leads us into a comment that we received from Vampire Bear, and we appreciate Vampire Bear. We appreciate you. You've commented quite a bit. Let me just read some of this comment here. Chris and Chris, I was really enjoying this until Alanis came on. Such a poor little girl with an extreme sense of self-entitlement. If she'd been mature, she'd have known to respect her elders and taken the bad experience and just moved on. A little bit of backstory. Her story was about attending a media event a few years ago. I think she was driving the KTM Crossbow at Sonoma. And it was a very exclusive event. There were only, I think she said 6.
6 or 7, something like that. And
one of the journalists there didn't necessarily conduct himself in a way that might have been befitting of colleagues in this field. So we'll leave the story for that video if you want to go back and watch it. Unfortunately, Vampire Bear didn't really appreciate the story. And like I said, we appreciate our listeners, but come on, saying such a poor little girl with an extreme sense of self-entitlement, that's
and Vampire Bear, like, you're a frequent commenter. I respect you, but the line where you wrote kids in all exclamation points, kids like her are why I weep for the future.
She's a veteran in this industry with years under her belt.
Yeah, she's not a kid, man.
Working in an industry dominated by males who don't necessarily have the widest, best outlook. I mean, I said it in the episode last week. Toxic masculinity is just rampant in the auto world. I'm kind of sick of it, and I'm just going to say no. We're not going to have comments like this. We welcome criticism on our shows. We welcome criticism of guests, and if you had some troubles with her story, there's a better way to approach it than this. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
And I agree. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate that you've been a longtime listener, but it's not cool. The person that she was talking about, not recognizing her the next day, I can give that a pass. People get tired, you come in, face blindness, things like that happen. But the fact that she was the only person that we know of that this person asked, does she know how to drive stick, in a group of 6 or 7 people, like, that's, if you're in a professional setting and KTM invited her there, expect that KTM understood that she was supposed to be there with this small group of people.
Never mind the fact that she has quite a bit of racing experience. I mean, it's
that too. If you look at Alanis's Twitter right now, you will know that she has a Lamborghini Huracan STO as a press car right now, which, Smith, you and I have never had. So
yeah, she knows. I mean, she's a veteran in this business, and as I said last week, her experience, especially on the racing side, performance side,
right?
She's among the elite. So to say such a poor little girl with an extreme sense of self-entitlement,
and to call her a kid, like, that's not cool, and we're not going to do this. Like,
that's
not acceptable.
That's not how we do things.
And in a certain way, it's disrespectful of us, because the people that we have on this show are people that we respect. If we didn't respect them, you have to understand, Smith and I, we do this. We do not get paid for doing this show. This is something we do outside of work. It is part of Motor One, but we are not remunerated for our time. So if we have someone on, it is because we have pursued that person and put them on the show. So give us enough respect that if we think someone should be here, then they should be here.
And you know what? You could also feel free to email us, podcast@motor1.com. You can comment on our articles that go up every Friday at motor1.com. You can certainly comment on our YouTube videos at Motor1 Podcast. And I want to be clear, we are happy getting critical feedback.
Totally. Yeah.
This just wasn't critical. Anyways, let's get on to some really cool stuff.
Yep.
Because I actually wanted to talk about this last week, and I was like, there's just no time because we had so many guests. And again, you want to go back, if you haven't listened to it, you want to go back and listen to that podcast, watch that podcast. We had, I mean, it opened with a story about RVing with 98
degrees.
How can you go wrong with that? You can't go wrong with that. And then it ends with jumping Subarus at the Isle of Man. It's like, what?
Yeah.
We're
I was just thinking about poor John Neff standing out in the rain holding an awning so that 98 degrees can be inside enjoying playing video games.
Hey, the price of hanging out with superstars, right?
Let's not call 98 degrees a superstar. It's not the Beatles.
Superstars. How's that for a segue? We need some like graphics on the screen that let us know when we do a really cool or really terrible segue.
Exactly.
GR Corolla is a superstar. We've heard the rumors. It's been teased. We knew, okay, it's gonna most likely have GR Yaris stuff with the all-wheel drive system, the turbo 3-cylinder that we can't get the GR Yaris in the US. Obviously, the Corolla, we were expecting it. Okay, it'll have the Yaris powertrain or the Yaris horsepower, which GR Yaris is what, like 300 or 260.
No, so that's the interesting thing, is that they tricked us. So it's 256 in Europe, but it's 273 in Japan. And they tricked us because all of the numbers they put down just said 273. Turns out it has 300 horsepower in the US and 273 pound-feet of torque.
From a 1.6 liter 3-cylinder.
Yeah.
I want to hear this thing. It's gonna sound just so angry. It's got 3 exhaust tips out the back. It's got 2 at the side, 1 in the middle. 300 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. It's got selectable all-wheel drive system, Bruce. So you can send as much as 40% of power to the rear,
70% of power to the rear.
Or you can send 70% of the power to the rear.
Right. So you have front 60%, rear 40%. So all of these numbers, the first number I say is front, the back is rear. So 60-40 front rear, 50-50 straight split, or 30-70. So only 30% going to the front, 70% going to the rear. And then with that, if you end up with the circuit edition, or as an option on the regular model, you get torsion differentials at the front and rear, so you can then split that side to side. So just,
Well, let me back you up a minute, because you wrote the debut here on it. Can you explain to us a little bit what Circuit Edition and Core Edition are?
I can, and then I'll get into the availability on that because you wrote that up. So Core Edition is essentially the base model. And so all of them get that 1.6 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder, 300 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. The only gearbox available at launch for both of them is going to be a 6-speed manual. Core has, like you would expect, all of kind of the stuff you need, but then there's going to be the Circuit Edition. Core is going to arrive sometime in 2022. We're not exactly sure when. We have kind of an idea. The Circuit Edition is going to arrive 2023 calendar year. But if you opt for the Circuit, then you get a forged carbon fiber roof. I really recommend you check out Motor1's YouTube page. Clint Simone, who's been on the show before, he checked it out. The forged carbon fiber roof looks really good. It has, it's got kind of like almost like a granite finish to it, and then it's matte over that. It's not glossy. It looks really, really cool. But also with that Circuit Edition, you get the torsion differentials. and you get a different rear wing and stuff like that. So yeah,
It just looks meaner. It's got
it
that
does.
it's got that bulge hood on it. It's got the carbon fiber roof. That, I mean, from a distance you don't really see the roof, but when you get up close, it just has a nice mean look to it. It's got the much bigger wing at the back. But it's important to note that the Circuit Edition, the changes there that are specific to the Circuit Edition are just those aesthetics. The mechanical, the power, the 300 horse, that's there. And I guess I hate to call it the base model because it's still going to be a pretty spiffy
Well,
Corolla.
the core model, that's what they call it.
Yeah, in core format. The power is still going to be there. You can get, correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, but I think you can option the core model with those limited slip differentials.
You can. Yes.
So you can get all of the same tech that you would get in the Circuit Edition. The only thing that you won't get is the carbon fiber roof, the bulging hood, that rear spoiler. But there are going to be aftermarket options if you want something that looks a little bit more aggressive. And the stance on this thing, man, it just looks good with the fenders. This has a slightly wider track than the regular Corolla, if I'm not mistaken.
And the Corolla hatch, yeah.
Right.
For anyone who is watching on YouTube, I'm sharing this right now, so you will see that roof that I was referring to here in a second. I know it's a bit choppy. That is a combination of me sharing it plus Clint's feed, because he was there at the debut.
Yeah,
it didn't stream super crisply, but you can see
live on social when it debuted last Thursday.
Right. But you can see what that forged carbon roof looks like, and it just looks so good.
It's definitely neat, and it's worth pointing out, Toyota didn't just take the Corolla and bolt up an all-wheel drive system with that Turbo 3. And like I said, it has a wider track. The body, I believe, has also been stiffened in various places.
Yep, it has additional welding points in all of the joints, and then it has additional structural adhesive throughout the body as well. So that'll make it stiffer everywhere.
And Bruce, what do you think about 6-speed manual only? I mean, there is no option for an automatic. There is no option for like a paddle shift dual clutch.
I have a theory about this that I have not shared with you. So you can tell me what you think here. I'm going to try to get the images back up here before I start doing that.
Well, I think I know where you're going with this theory, and it's probably going to be a sound theory. So why don't you go ahead? Why don't you go ahead and enlighten us?
So Toyota was very clear that the Circuit Edition is only available for the first model year.
Yes.
To me, you would not make the investment to produce this vehicle with a carbon fiber roof, because that's obviously going to take extra just building issues, and the other carbon fiber bits plus everything, if you didn't intend that to be the future of this vehicle, or at least produce future vehicles like this. Plus, we know Toyota has been developing a Yaris with an 8-speed automatic gearbox. They have a prototype of it. They showed it off during a recent event. One of the execs was bragging about that he apparently broke one of the prototypes. They have several of these prototypes with an 8-speed automatic gearbox. My theory is that the core model goes away after the first model year.
The Circuit goes away after the first model year.
No. The core model goes away after the first model year. The Circuit Edition becomes the standard version, and the version with the 8-speed automatic becomes the upgrade. That's my personal theory.
Okay, that's different than my theory.
What's your theory?
Well, I think the core will stay. I think the core will stay because they're going to need, and this is gonna touch on pricing, which maybe we can discuss here in a little bit. I think the core will stay, but the Circuit Edition could go away and then give way to a new special edition that still has the roof with the upgraded transmission and maybe some other items. It leaves them a little bit of space in the following model year, or maybe 2 years down the road, however long they run this for. It leaves them some space to sort of reintroduce the Circuit Edition with some extra gear while maintaining the core model whether they continue
Okay.
the core or not. They maintain that model to try to, because that's going to be that'll be the volume seller.
Hmm.
We know it'll be the volume seller because we actually got some production numbers, some planned production numbers from Toyota.
Yep.
There's only going to be 1,500 of the circuit editions made for the first year.
For the first model year, not total, for the first model year.
Well, the circuit edition is done after the first model year. They're only going to offer it for the first year. So,
but there's got to be something that's going to, they're not going to no longer offer it with a carbon fiber roof. Like they've already made that investment. They'd be crazy not to keep having a carbon fiber roof model. They just might not call it a circuit edition.
They won't call it the circuit edition, but that plays into my theory. Okay, maybe not the following model year, but the model year after that, they'll bring it back and they'll call it the hardcore edition or something different. Sure. Meanwhile, the core model, they're planning at least 5,000 units for the first model year for the core. So 6,500 total. I mean, it's going to be a niche vehicle. I kind of talked about this a little bit, and we've talked about it in our Teams chat because Toyota hasn't told us anything about pricing yet.
No,
they haven't even dropped hints about pricing. Correct. And that's kind of been the wild speculation here. Where does the GR Corolla need to be price-wise for it to sell? And my take is they need to start it in the low to mid 30,000 range. And I think I'm in the minority on that, saying that that's going to be a little bit too low. But you need to start it in the low to mid 30,000 range with the basic core model, with just your standard equipment, the 6-speed manual. Of course, I mean you're only going to get the manual, but if you start it much higher, you run into the Volkswagen Golf R, which doesn't have maybe quite the same rally-tastic feel to it, but it's still all-wheel drive with a manual, with a hatchback, with a lot more standard equipment, and that's starting, I think, 44,000.
Right.
So if you start a GR Corolla in the high 30 or even the low 40 range, as cool as it is, who's getting that over the Golf R with a little bit more power?
No, I think you and I are closer in opinion than you might have thought. My number for the core model is 35K. Mm-hmm. That's, maybe it's 34,995 or whatever it is. And then I bet for the circuit, the 39, circuit, maybe 40.
The circuit will be over 40, I think.
You think over 40? I'm okay.
I think limited edition, only 1,500 with a carbon fiber roof. I think that'll be over 40. That's going to go to the people that just want a straight up Toyota rally car for the street. They don't give a rip about the Volkswagen Golf R. They don't give a rip about anything else. If it was 50 grand, they would pay it because they're not cross shopping it with anything. They just want that GR Corolla.
Sure.
For the rest, they're going for the core model, maybe optioned up. But if you start it at say 32,000, that makes it really, really tempting, especially for people that might be thinking about a WRX, or especially the Subaru people that are upset that there's no more STI coming anytime soon. So now you can get a WRX with 271 horsepower, or you can spend just a little bit more and get your 300 horsepower GR Corolla that has, I mean, let's be honest. I think the GR Corolla looks way, way better than a WRX. And I'm a Subaru fan, right? If they can price that at 32 grand, Toyota's, I think they'll be able to grab a lot of Subaru sales because there's not going to be an STI. This can be the STI alternative that they're not going to be able to get anywhere else. And if you want to then spec it up, you do what every automaker does. You come in with the really cheap entry-level model that's still going to have the performance, but then you can option it up with the differentials, with the other equipment.
That's exactly what I was about to bring up. You might have a point here, So let's say they start at 32 then. We
Mhm.
know the 3 packages that are going to be optional. There's a cold weather package that gives you heated front seats and a heated steering wheel. There's a technology package that adds navigation to the infotainment. It upgrades the stereo and adds wireless smartphone charging. And then there's the performance package that gives you the front and rear Torsen limited slip diffs. So let's say you start at 32, and by the time you add if you add all 3 of those, it's 38 or something like that.
38, 39. Yep.
That would make sense, because then you still give people options that, I live in Florida. I never need heated seats and a heated steering wheel. I'll take, a GR Yaris with the performance pack. I'll take the diffs because it'll be sporty. Maybe I'll take the tech pack with the navigation, but I don't need cold weather. So you end up with a 35, 36. Whereas if you end up with a fully loaded one, it's 38. You might have a point here.
I think if Toyota followed that structure, it would be a winner. It would kill. I've already said on the podcast, I'm really interested in possibly buying this car. Has a long overdue replacement for my Mazda 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more motivated on that than ever if they can come in at the price. But I'm not going to pay 40 grand for this car. As much as I love it, I just can't justify 40 grand for it.
And I think that's fair. I don't think this is a $40,000 car. Maybe a circuit edition is 40, but for a core, I think it, for a core model, I think this is I started at 35, maybe 32, 33, and then you add those options on and you end up, 38, something like that. I think that's where it wants to be.
And that's what concerns me, because I can very easily see Toyota rubbing their hands together like this and saying, well, let's start this right under 40 grand. Let's start it at 39.8 or 39.9. And then you get your $50,000 circuit edition. And as cool as this car is, that's just not going to fly. You'll have the really hardcore people that are going to get it no matter what. And then it's just going to wither on the vine. Because as cool as it is, it's still a Corolla. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying if I'm spending 45 or 50 grand for a car instead of 32 or 35, I'm looking at things completely different. Completely different.
So I just pulled this up because I was curious. So a GR86, also a Toyota, the premium with a 6-speed automatic with destination, 32,825. So I just wonder, at what point does Toyota get worried that they're going to cannibalize sales from their other performance models versus this?
I thought about that too. And I think the GR86 and the GR Corolla are separated enough where I don't think there's going to be too much cross-contamination there.
Sure, because one is an all-wheel drive kind of. One is a rally car, one is a circuit car. You could almost put it. They're both street cars, obviously, but
and the GR86, it's quite a bit lower on the horsepower range. Yeah. I don't think anybody's going to be thinking about getting a maxed out, fully spec'd up GR86, and then thinking, well, maybe I'll just spend an extra grand or two and get the GR Corolla. I think they're different enough in flavor that it's not going to matter that much. I'm sure there'll be some people. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's a concern. I think the bigger concern for Toyota is if they get it in their heads that they're going to start this at 40 grand and then take it up to 50 grand for your circuit edition. That rules me out. And
it rules a lot of people out.
And I am super excited for this car, and I can afford this car at 35 grand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
35, maybe even 36, 37. I can afford this car.
Yeah, sub 40, call it that. If it's 38, nicely equipped with
if I'm
two option packages, yeah.
I mean, realistically, I could go beyond that. But if I'm going beyond that,
as much as I look at something else,
as much as I love the Corolla, there are so many other things I'm looking at.
And that is a perfect segue to my point. Is that at its base, this is a Corolla hatchback. That's what it is. Like, the shell of this vehicle is a Corolla hatchback that Toyota has done a lot of stuff to. They've put in a much more powerful engine. They've installed all-wheel drive. They've done a lot to. But strip all that away, and you have a Corolla hatchback. And that's not that, it's not prestigious in its own way, but it's also, it's just not that special.
And again, I want to stress, I'm not saying, oh, it's just a Corolla. It has a negative.
No.
Not at all. I'm just saying, if I'm going to spend 40 or 45 grand on a car, I might look at something used in German.
Sure.
I might actually look at a Kia Stinger, which I think is a cool car that has good performance. It's
going to have much more rear leg room.
I mean, a lot more practicality. And that's just off the top of my head.
Sure.
I mean, hell, I might even think about a Camaro, right?
I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know what a used Camaro ZL1 like previous generation goes for, but 40 grand's probably gonna get you close.
Well, I'm pretty sure you could get a new V8 Camaro.
Oh, every day of the week, especially with dealer.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily need the super high end version, but
sure.
I mean, an LT1 Camaro with a V8.
Mm-hmm.
I could have a pretty nice one for 40 grand. I would take that over GR Corolla. I'm in love with the car, but there are options, Toyota, and I hope you realize that. I hope you price this thing accordingly. Toyota also hasn't told us any performance stats yet, so we've been left to speculate on that. But I mean, 0 to 60 in probably what the high 4, low 5 second range.
That's the number. So
with the launch.
Yep. So I put this into our store, and I'm not going to be able to hold on. I'm going to have to stop sharing
because GR Yaris is generally a low to mid 5 second car, 0 to 60.
Correct, but it has less power, but it also has less weight. So I would expect, again, low to mid 5 seconds. I would, if you ask me a number, I would say 5.2 is the number I have in my head.
And that's plenty fast enough for me for a fun daily driver. I wouldn't be.
That's faster than any of the cars I own right now.
I wouldn't be ripping this down the drag strip. I would be down every dirt road, every back road I could find, just having a blast with this car. So Toyota, price this thing right. You'll have at least one buyer already.
And then put an automatic in it next year, and then I'll buy one. So you'll have two.
There you go.
But yeah, it's an interesting vehicle. It's the most exciting vehicle to come around in a long time. We were talking about this in our team's chat, and it's the first vehicle we can all agree on that we like in ages. Like, some of us like trucks, or some of it, all of us have come into this industry with our own kind of preferences. The GR Corolla is the first one, at least amongst the Motor One crew, that we all like something about it. But I think that's mercurial, that if the price is wrong, if they mess something up, then that admiration is going to go away.
No, I'm right there with you. I just keep thinking about Supra when we learned Supra pricing.
Yeah.
And how disappointed I was, and a lot of people were
totally
at the price for the Supra. So yeah, Toyota, get this one right. That's all I can say.
Yep.
All I can say.
Do we want to say who our guest is next week? That's locked in, right?
Well, we thought we were locked in this week. Let's
Good point. Good point.
Everything should be on track. We're hoping to have another episode on some cool tire talk next week.
That's the plan.
We do have a returning guest. Our guest this week, we're going to do a really cool show on detailing and barn finds with a very special guest. We are going to have that in the future.
We have rescheduled. We have tentatively rescheduled that. He will be back on later. It just, unfortunately, he wasn't feeling well, and that happened.
Finding a Ferrari in a barn and then being tasked with cleaning up 30 years of neglect. I was a detailer for several years when I was going to college, and I know some of that experience. I have some cool stories to share. I'm really excited to just kind of talk back and forth with him on some of his experiences. That's going to be a really good podcast. And of course, as always, folks, email us, podcast@motor1.com. Give us feedback on the show. Tell us your car stories. We didn't get any car stories last week, and I know you have some.
So we didn't. You're absolutely right. That's interesting. Yeah,
we want to hear some cool car stories. Email us. Comment on our article that goes up at motor1.com every Friday. Comment on our YouTube page, Motor1 Podcast. Like, follow, and subscribe. We are growing slowly.
Not slowly. At this point, we are gaining, on average, just over a subscriber a day. So, hell, if we did that for a whole year, we would be doing good. Like, I would love that. So
let's keep that going. Bruce and I are going to try to come up with some fun challenges, some fun subscriber challenges. Totally. Kind of like what we did last year. We've been
with the hot sauce challenge
a little bit. So there you go. Send us your ideas for some subscriber challenges. We're pretty shameless. We'll give it a go.
Yep. And we got some cool guests coming up. Like I said, next week we'll have a guest. Fingers crossed in 2 weeks we'll have a guest. And then we've got some tentative ones that are being set up. So it will not just be Smith and I talking cars for too long, although I really enjoy doing that. So if that's I'd be fine with that too. But
I enjoy it as well, even if you like brown. God, why do you like brown cars, dude?
That car's got a little red in it. Just a little red. Anyway.
Anyways, take us home, man.
All right, man. And yeah, as always, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We appreciate all of our listeners. We appreciate all of our comments. We love all of you. Even if, we might disagree with you, we still appreciate you for giving your feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But we might give our feedback back to you. And that's just the way things go. But yeah. Bye-bye, everybody, and thank you.
We'll see you. Bye-bye now.